So I said this thing was basically our template for all the other flicks. I'll add a class to it called template. I want that class to be there on this one, but not all the real ones. And in my JavaScript, instead of document create element li, I want to make a copy of that one. So in order to make a copy of it, I better grab it first. And it's going to be the same for all of them. So I don't need to grab it over and over and run document query selector every single time I run render list item. So just like we grabbed the list ahead of time, we could go ahead and grab this template ahead of time too. So let's save this dot template or flick template, whatever you want to call it. Document.query selector. And I guess I could put the selector right in here, but we've already got two other selectors that we pass in. So it might be nice to do that. So I'll say selectors dot template selector. And then when I call init at the bottom, I have another thing to add. My comma's already there. How convenient. Template selector. Something with the class flick and the class template. Maybe there'll be other templates someday. But this is the template for flicks. So that means both of those classes are there. That's the CSS selector for something that has multiple classes. Doesn't matter that it's an li. It could be a div or something else, as long as those two classes are there. And also by making this an object, instead of just passing in 3 arguments, we can tell what these 3 arguments are, and we can put them in any order. Life is good. Did it work? App.template. Yeah, there it is. Yay. So I said that inside render list item, instead of creating the li from scratch, I want to make a copy of that one. So we already have that one. It is this.template now, right? Wouldn't it be cool if there were a built-in DOM method to just make a copy of a dang element? cloneNode, could it be? Could that be a real thing? Let's try it. Let's inspect this rascal. Here we go, li. So now that we're inspecting it, it is $0, right? So we can experiment here. Easier than putting in a bunch of console logs. Const copy equals $0.0.cloneNode. Copy. Yeah, I have another one. Hey, where are all my buttons? I almost said buttonses again. Like once I do it a silly way, I can't stop doing it. Hobbitses and buttonses. Who took my buttons? I've been betrayed. This is a crappy cloning device. All right, fine. DOM cloneNode will read the gosh darn documentation. Why do I do this all the time? To get you used to the idea that if you don't know how something works, you should look it up. Because the documentation is pretty good. Returns a duplicate of the node on which this method was called. Oh, there's an argument. Deep. So what the heck does deep do? True if the children of the node should also be cloned. False to clone only the specified node. Well, of course I want the children. True. Yeah, how about inspecting it first? There it is. Const clone equals $0 dot clone node. True. It's an li with all the other stuff. We probably don't need the rock in there. That was just for funsies. So clone node true, and that ought to do it. What happens? What happens is what I promised you would happen. No buttons. Why? What do we do after we clone it? Where do we put the name? Inside the item's text content. Replaced the entire contents with just the name. We don't want to do that, do we? We want to put it just inside this span. So we want to get the span with the class of flick name. But if I do document.querySelector.flickName, that's going to find all of them that happen to be there already. Well, guess what? You can call querySelector on a specific element, too, to search just inside that element. You don't have to search document-wide. So let's say item, it's going to be a long line, .querySelector instead of document.querySelector. Look for the class flickName and change its text content to flickName, flick.name. Dig. There we go. Now I have buttonses. Maybe we could use a tiny bit of space between these things. Cool? Yeah.
So what do you do with the blank entry now?
It kind of looks dumb, doesn't it? So we could add some sort of rule. I'll put it up here. It has a template class, right? And even if we had other templates on the page for other elements, the idea is that the templates themselves don't show, right? Only the copies. So we could hide it with a CSS rule. Anybody know the difference between display none and visibility hidden? There are two ways of hiding things with CSS. Anybody just happen to know that one? Yeah. Josh. Visibility hidden? So close. The difference is visibility hidden leaves a place for it. Everything else will still behave as though it's there and kind of, leave a blank spot. Whereas display none will take it clear out of the document flow. Now it is still in the DOM. If you were to use query selector to try to find it, you would find it. But it will not take up any space. Yeah, Alex. Display block. Yeah, I'll answer that in just a sec. Okay, thanks. So we'll put display none on here. Now it's not there. What about when we clone it? Still not there. What's up? We've been betrayed.
You're cloning it with the class of template.
Yeah, the clone has the template class too, right? So we need to take that off. So I will do that before we do this business. I think that should be the first thing we do after we clone it. So item dot, we used class list, right? We did that yesterday, didn't we? Class list dot remove template. Okay, the template isn't there. We add one. Transubstantiormers. Hey, it works. Go us. So to answer your question, possible values for display include things like block and inline. So the difference between those two is the same as the difference between a div and a span. Block elements behave like paragraphs and H1s and things like that. They take up an entire line. They take up the full width of their container, and there's always a blank line after them. Inline elements do not do that. They're things like small here, right? There's no blank line after that. You can just do that in the middle of a sentence. Or like EM, which italicizes things. Same deal. Strong, which makes things bold. That's inline. There's also display flex to use flexbox. And there's good old display none. There's some others too. Table, if you want to make something display like it's a table. We don't want it to display at all. Beautiful. Just beautiful. Heartbreakingly gorgeous. So clone the template to build each flicks list item. Much easier, especially considering we're not even done making buttons, right? We're going to have move up and move down eventually. Man, that would be a lot of JavaScript.